So I'm Sarah Harriman.
And I'm Mikey Weaver.
We had our daughter May Jane Weaver in September of 2020, and she tragically died at 12 days old.
My name's Nadine.
And I'm Todd.
And we're the parents of Carter James Robinson, who was stillborn on the 19th of April 2021. We were 36 weeks pregnant with Carter, a normal, carefree, essentially, pregnancy, and his heart just stopped beating.
My name is Rachel and I am mum to Eva. She was born prematurely at just under 24 weeks and she died when she was 8 days old.
So my name's Colleen and my daughter's name was Violet. We lost Violet in October last year from neuroblastoma, so she had cancer. It was a really long journey for us. It was 6 years.
My name's Kyla and this is Todd, and we lost our daughter Molly to Turner syndrome on the 7th of October last year. We had to terminate for medical reasons just into our second trimester, which was really difficult.
I'm Emma Jane.
And I'm Roddy.
And we lost two boys, Samuel, aged 5 weeks in 2010, with a condition called Charge syndrome.
And then 2 years later, we lost our son Ben when he was 6 years of age, 5 months after he was diagnosed with a brain tumour.
I think I feared most that I didn't know how I would keep going, or if I wanted to.
I think I feared that I would feel that way forever and to such an intensity, and that there would be no reprieve from that kind of sadness and grief and being bereft, and just that was my life then, that this was how I would feel for the rest of time.
Yeah.
So we have 2 other children. I feared most for them and how they would manage. My other daughter is 2 years older than Violet, and they were really close. So I really feared for how they would cope at such a young age, having gone through already so much, and then having her pass. That was really tough.
Because we had already gone out and told everybody that we were pregnant, and having to then go and tell everybody that, it wasn't happening it hurt a fair bit. But
Termination for medical reason is so taboo, and the fear around people judging you and whether or not your grief is as valid as somebody else's is something that I think, for me, I struggled with a lot.
Those people that just dropped around for a cup of tea, didn't necessarily need to do anything significant, but just sat when you're feeling so lonely and isolated and devastated. Those people I treasure, absolutely.
Saying the child's name, there's nothing better than hearing that. It could be every day, it would never get old. To know that people continue to think about your child and remember them, that they care about them. It also shows us that you care about us.
Just the communication with my friends and family, not necessarily talking about what had happened and rehashing everything because it was still pretty fresh at the time, but actually just calling up and saying, hey, how you going? And
for me, the most helpful thing comes down to a recurring theme is really one of acknowledgement. There's lots of times when you have got family occasions when you're acutely aware that your little person isn't there. Acknowledgement that someone is missed means something really special.
The worst part of it was friends or family that stayed away for fear of not knowing what to say. I think that hurt the most, that lots of people just didn't show up.
No one wants to hear you say at least. I got the comments of at least you can get pregnant, at least you can have more kids, or it must have happened for a reason. All those things, whether right or wrong, did not help.
People would say, if you need anything, let us know.
Yeah.
And then nothing.
I can assure you that you don't know what you need. And so just like think of something.
Yeah.
Just think of something and give it a go. And if it lands, that's great. But
whatever.
just try. I mean,
Yeah.
saying, let me know if you need something is the most throwaway line you can say to a grieving person, I think, because in no way gives you accountability to do anything.
I used to have a lot of people say how horrible life would be, you know, oh, you've lost someone you love, I've had that happen to me, and, you know, I've never let go, it's always been so hard. And that actually, I don't know, I think it sort of drove a bit of fear that I would never feel better, that it would always be this thing dragging me down and feeling depressed. And actually, as time goes on, that's not the case. It does get easier. It really does. It just is a time thing. And there'll always be those waves where things come up again. And at the end of the day, you just get through each one because you know that you've done it before.
If you think of someone, text them straight away. And if you think of their baby, text them straight away. And if you see something and you think, that's a nice cloud, that reminds me of such and such, just text them straight away. Because the amount of times that we heard, I've been thinking about you a lot lately, you've been on my mind, and you just think, how would I know that?
I don't know that. That doesn't do me any good, and it doesn't do you any good because it's still in your head.
Just say you don't know what to do, that you don't know what to say. That's okay. It's, you know, something as simple as knocking on the door, showing up and just sharing the same room and watching a movie and not even talking. Like, sometimes that's just what you need. You want someone else in that space to help kind of spread that burden at times. And yeah, that would be my advice. Just show up.
Don't tell them it's going to be okay. Just love them and just respect their boundaries and let them know you're there without actually being physically right there at all times.
When I went back to work, I couldn't work in my workplace anymore because of significant PTSD and trauma from watching a code. And because I was a paediatric nurse with paediatric advanced life support training, I just couldn't do my job anymore.
I took about 9 months off. I took my maternity leave. And then going back, that was quite daunting in terms of knowing that I would have to face lots of people.
Yeah, I guess the worst thing was I had a manager that wasn't really sympathetic and didn't understand that if I needed random time off or I felt like I wasn't coping. And one remark that will stay is that she said, would I get the same amount of sympathy if my cat passed away? And which I informed her, no, you wouldn't, because that's a cat. And this is my daughter.
I mean, getting back to work was a little bit tricky because when you get back to work, that's kind of the milestone of, okay, now it's just time to get back to reality and get back to normal life.
Terrible, actually. After Samuel, I'm a solicitor, and at the time I was working as a solicitor in an investment bank in London. I had to commute 2 hours each way and do a full day's work in between. None of my colleagues mentioned my pregnancy, let alone my loss, and the days were really empty and lonely.
I think the hardest thing about returning to work was it acknowledges the fact that life is carrying on, but it's carrying on without your children.
For me at the time, and the advice that I would provide is that to get support. Even if you're not usually someone who would reach out for support, just give it a go.
The only consistent thing I've probably seen and felt and heard from other families is just give yourself time.
It's a journey, but it does get easier.
Understanding that you and your husband will grieve differently and that there's no right or wrong way to grieve. And your feelings are valid just like theirs are valid. And on the days that they might not be as sad as you, it doesn't mean that they don't care. It doesn't mean that they're over it. You're walking the same grief path, but you've got separate roads.
You have to accept that your life won't be the same again, and acknowledge that and work out how you're going to live with that. Things from many respects will be easier as time goes on. However, that sense of loss will remain. And I think what I would say is do surround yourself with people that are happy to talk to you about your child. And I think Precious Wings is a very good forum for people to be able to have that opportunity to share deep and precious memories of their lost child.